Hello, everybody. Welcome back to our show. We've renamed our show in case Michael was wondering. We're now called the Goravia Podcast. James Butler got a little bit confused with that, but that's our name, our new identity. And we're here to review the first Test match in the two-Test series between Zimbabwe and New Zealand. And when we speak New Zealand cricket, we have our guest Michael from across the ditch, or New Zealand. Hello, Michael. Thank you for joining us.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Zimbabwe, they won the toss. They decided to bat. I thought this was a very weird Test match because Michael, stats, we talked a little bit backstage. Stats says New Zealand absolutely dominated. I thought this was a lot closer than what the scoreline suggested. Matt Henry's first innings was absolutely fantastic, picked up 6 wickets. But I thought this was a closer match than suggested, Michael. What's your feelings about this match?
I'm not sure it was a closer match. Like, New Zealand were never really in doubt per se, but it was like most of the hours were contested. There was just a few minutes where New Zealand dominated, and then it would go back to being a fairly even contest until New Zealand suddenly got a sniff and bang, 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 a few wickets or a flurry of boundaries, and all of a sudden the even contest disappeared, and then go back to being an even contest again for the next hour or so, and then bang, 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 and some of it was it was almost like Santner was just figuring out how to get a batsman out, and then he'd figure it out, and then they'd get them out, and then they'd have to go and figure out again how to get the next one out. So there was a little bit of that. But Matt Henry was extraordinary, and he was, in a lot of ways, it was just almost unfair having him playing in that game. It was like a cheat code playing on an easy level in a computer game, having him in your team for this game. And what he's developed, and he picked it up really from playing in England, and it didn't work so well at first when he came back to using the Kookaburra ball. His first couple of years of Test cricket were awful. I mean, he averaged 50 in his first 4 years of Test cricket, he averaged about 50 with the ball. Horrendous start. Like at one point, he was in the conversation for the worst averaging bowler in Test history. I think no one had bowled more deliveries than him and had a worse average. There was at one particular point in his career. Well, since then, he's averaged 17. I mean, that's, SF Barnes sort of numbers. Ridiculous. And what he does is he bowls on fourth stump with a wobble seam, and some of them come in, and some of them go out, and some of them go straight. And he will just bowl those balls that will just, if they go straight, they just miss the top of off stump. And if they come in, you can't leave them because they might come in. You can't play at them because they might move away. What do? You hope that you're lucky, or you get out and you cover it, or you hope that he has a bad day. You don't really, if he's in that mode, the only thing the batsman can do is actually get out of their crease and try and disrupt them. And Zimbabwe just weren't good enough to do that. They couldn't hit him off his length, and so he could just dominate them. And they tried a little bit better in the second innings, and particularly the night watchman they sent in. He had what was a very effective technique of the way that he got his pads out of the road, got his bat in there, and played slightly inside the ball with soft hands. So if it moved away, it missed the bat. If it went straight through, it took the edge and went into the ground. And if it cut back in, it hit his bat. Never going to score any runs doing that. And he did. Well, he got like 2 from 70 or something. But you're not going to get out. And he saw off the new ball. So there was some things there that they may well learn from. But I thought that Matt Henry was extraordinary, and Nathan Smith in the first innings, who unfortunately got injured. Wow, that was just some extraordinary bowling. And I think that at one point he bowled something like 19 overs or 18 overs for 9 runs. And it was just every ball on the spot, and there was nothing that they could do about it. Now, we want to see Nathan Smith do that again. He's done that in domestic cricket plenty of times. We want to see him doing it against the big boys. And they won't let him just bowl there. They will hit him off his length. So he's got to have some more tricks in his up his sleeve. But against Zimbabwe, he was just a bit too good for them. So the bowling was really the big thing for me. But it was interesting when you saw Zimbabwe have a bowl on the same pitch. it wasn't easy for New Zealand either.
Yeah. No, I was just about to mention that. New Zealand, they made 300, but I said there was only three batsmen that really stood out. The two openers, Conway was fantastic, back to form with Conway. Darren Mitchell also hit an impressive 80. But apart from that, Michael, as you said, they all really struggled. Apart from those three, like even those three really did struggle for a certain amount of time. But they were the only players that made runs. They did the most damage in that innings for New Zealand.
Yeah, and that's like that is a little bit of playing on a new surface as well. When you're playing on a surface that acts a bit differently, it can take a while to get started. And for the guys that aren't used to it, it takes a while. You're pretty vulnerable early on, but once you get in, then you should do all right. And so you saw that a little bit. I mean, I think there was not much going on in terms of there were not a lot of you either you got runs or you didn't.
Oh, we seem to be having some problems, Michael, because your screen has frozen. That's a little bit unfortunate. That's what happens on live YouTube. When you're far away, we had problems with James Butler. Okay. Okay, Michael has completely frozen. No, oh yeah, I can. Yep, you're back. No, you were frozen there for a minute. No, you're back. Yeah, keep going, Michael. Now? Just keep going. Yep, keep going.
All right. What I was going to say, you saw that the Zimbabwean bowlers did know how to use the conditions, and they bowled reasonably well. I thought the left armour was more impressive than 1 for 64 suggests. I think he'll bowl worse than that and get better figures other days. But the fact is, it's the sort of bowling that New Zealand quite likes. That's what you get a lot of in domestic cricket, so it's not that uncomfortable for them. But it was very much a game where you had lots of guys getting 2s and 9 and 6, sort of those sort of scores, because they just hadn't got a chance to get used to the pitch. It's interesting. I had a bit of a search through statistically, and I was looking at if there had ever been a player who had carried the bowling lineup of their team as much as Muzarambani has. So I looked through all of the players I could find in history, and I found only one when I looked through that had a similar ratio of his average to the other players versus the other players. So Muzarambani averages 24 in the matches he's played. The other players in the team average 48 combined. Right, so he's twice as good as anyone else. And the only one I could find when I was looking through a bunch of them was from the 1930s and 40s New Zealand team, a guy called Jack Cowie, who averaged something like 21, was considered the best bowler in the world, and no one else in the team were really good at all. And it's it really is a sort of, he is so far ahead of everyone else in the team that you just wish that he got a chance to play for someone else, or that Zimbabwe could find a few more guys to back him up. Because, imagine if you had him bowling with pressure from the other end, it'd be just extraordinary.
I mentioned you're talking about Blessing. We mentioned Blessing on the James Butler show. He's an incredible skilled bowler. He's got a 5-wicket haul in Asia. Now, any seam bowler that takes a 5-wicket haul in Asia, Michael, that is very, very, very good. Unfortunately, we didn't quite see the best of him in that England Test match because of the flat pitch. I thought Zimbabwe probably would have put a green top for the South Africa Test match to help Blessing, but no, he's the real deal. He's a very good bowler. Unfortunately, the last couple of tests we haven't seen his best. Not that he was bowling bad against New Zealand, but he's a horses for courses bowler. A bit like Scott Boland. On their day they can cause absolute nightmare. But no, with Blessing, with a 5-wicket haul in Asia, I think that was against Bangladesh. No, he's an incredible, skillful bowler, seam bowler, and very tall as well. Gets a lot of bounce, Michael. So no, he's a very good bowler that should be respected, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I mean, look, Zimbabwe have got 4 very, very good cricketers in, Williams, Irvine, Raza, and Muzarambani are exceptional cricketers. They would not walk into, but any other side in the world, pretty much, if they were put in there, they wouldn't be out of place. They'd be, you could put Muzarambani in the Australian bowling lineup or in the South African bowling lineup, and he would look like he was an appropriate player to be in that level. You could put Sikandar Raza, England would pick him in a second for in their team, and they're beating India right now. That would be these guys are really, really good cricketers, and it's actually nice that they're getting some tests and we're getting to see them a little bit because they just haven't played enough cricket to really. And they haven't played against enough quality to really become the cricketers that they could be. And it's nice that they're getting a chance.
Absolutely. Now, with Zimbabwe's second innings, they were a little bit better, mostly led by Sean Williams, who, again, we mentioned backstage, he is a tremendous cricketer. If he played for South Africa or anyone else, he quite well played 100 tests, Michael. Could possibly average over 40. His stats is quite brilliant for where he's batting in Zimbabwe.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, you look at the numbers, and a lot of people would say, in the last 3 years, Kane Williamson is untouchable in terms of his stats, but he's not because actually Williams are slightly better. There's a huge gulf between those two, and then third place, which is Joe Root. Like he is now. Part of it, you say, well, who's he played, and have they been doing the research on him? And no, they haven't been probably. You saw that New Zealand came with a plan, and he did struggle a little bit with the round the wicket, aiming at the top of off stump. He struggled, but he still scored runs. Like he didn't find it easy, but he just kept there and he kept going, and he managed to actually look like, even though New Zealand had a plan that was working, he still managed to find a way to score some runs. And, they got him both innings the same sort of way, but it didn't happen instantly. It took some good deliveries to do it.
On Zimbabwe's second innings, Satner, he bowled really well in that second innings, Michael, picked up 4 wickets. How did you see his bowling? How did you see his captaincy? Captaincy for the first time, I believe, in test match cricket. How did you see that?
I just noticed, actually, I was thinking Irvine that they got in the same way. Sean Williams got out to Santner. Santner, I like his cricket. I like the way that he thinks about the game. You saw the commentators saying, "Oh, you should be doing this, you should be doing that," and then they had catch go exactly to the player they said should have been moved. He managed to keep the pressure on. I like the fact that he brought spin on early. Obviously, he's a spinner. He's likely to, but he used Daryl Mitchell quite well with the ball. I thought he did. He dealt with the issue of having a one less seamer with Smith being out really well. There were some challenges thrown at him. I think he did pretty well. You don't really know how good someone is until they're put under pressure, and he wasn't put under a huge amount of pressure in this game. But we'll see. We'll see. I think he's certainly a future long-term Test captain, and his bowling is going from strength to strength.
Yeah, I agree with that. He's a bit like a whipping boy at times, isn't he? Because with his spin bowling. But no, I like his cricket, all-round cricketer as well. Darren Mitchell, returned to form. He made that crucial 80 runs. As I said, there was only really 3 batsmen that made runs in that first innings, but Darren Mitchell was one of them. How did you see his innings?
Yeah, look, he always he tends to look good and get out early, or look bad and score runs. And there was a bit of that. So he didn't look great at first, but then he just managed to. He just stayed there and he kept scoring, and he's had a bit of a lean run. for a while. He did well against the sort of second tier South African team, and then he's had a few games, a few series in a row where hasn't really produced what we were expecting. It's nice to see him scoring again. I feel like he's coming to the end of the road. But I've felt like that before with him, and he keeps on delivering. I mean, in some ways, he started his career so late. I think he was about 32 or 33 when he debuted, because he'd been around for 10 years in domestic cricket. And I almost thought, oh well, he was looking like the best player to never play a test. In that sort of conversation. Then all of a sudden, he's actually built himself a bit of a career late. But he's not young, despite the fact he's only played 30 odd tests. He's closing in on 40, so he's not going. I think I may be doing him a disservice there. Let's just have a quick check of his age. He's 34, so I've 34. I've sold him down the river a little bit there. So he's obviously 29 when he debuted. But still, 34 is for a batsman. That's they tend to start to lose their eye around that point. Yeah. So look, he's a wonderful player, and the thing that's good is he tends to score a lot of runs when the pressure's on, when the other guys have failed, and that's when he does quite well, and that's pretty handy.
Yep. And also a return to form for Conway. Terrible getting out in the second innings when he's only chasing 8. That's awful. I feel for him there. But no, his first innings, again, he struggled a bit, but he returned to form. That's what you really want to see, because he really needs that. He hasn't had very high scores lately. So I thought he did really well, Conway.
No, he's been a real concern. And his form has been, there are a couple of young openers coming through that are starting to put some pressure on him. He needs 3 or 4 good performances to keep his spot. I think this is a start, but I think he's going to need to really impress the new coach that he's still got what he had when he first came on the scene.
Before we head off, Michael,
Lucas, I'm going to have to call time there.
No, that's all right. I was just going to say to you, is there any final thoughts before we head off?
Yeah, look, I'm really interested in the next test in the selections. They've picked a whole bunch of extra bowlers to fly over there for it. So I'm interested that Folks and Lister, and I think there was another one that are all coming into the squad. And I didn't think the bowlers looked like they needed a rest other than Smith. So it'll be interesting to see what we get. New coach trying to stamp his mark on the team.
Thank you, Michael. I'll let you go. You can head off and I'll close the show. But thank you for joining, Michael. Really do appreciate it.
Cool. Catch you later.
Thank you, mate. And that concludes the show. Make sure to like and subscribe. Please add us on X or Twitter if you want. The description is in it's in the bio. Add Michael on Twitter. Add me on Twitter. Links down below in the description. Thank you so much for reviewing. We'll be back for the second test match between Zimbabwe and New Zealand. Please join us then. And goodbye for now.